Hello and welcome back to Cruising and Musing. This is Rob, your host. We are not cruising tonight because there was a bit of severe weather here with our first monsoon of the rainy season in southwest Florida. And the roads are sort of washed out, and well, it's too dark out right now, and I can still hear street racers out there. But I was out earlier, and we had very flooded streets, a foot of standing ground on some of our main roads. So I don't want to be out there rolling through puddles where I don't know if it's a puddle or a pothole that will eat my car and break the control arms. So we're going to be doing this one from the porch. I get enough repair bills driving an old car around without excavating the problem by, deliberately damaging the suspension. So, we just wrapped up the previous video on the teacher shortage, 20-minute video talking about the things that led to the teacher shortage, some things I think people missed, for example, the baby boomers starting to retire even before the pandemic, was starting to decrease the number of teachers overall. And that's got to be something that you see across the board as the boomers retire. They're going to be opening up positions because they haven't been leaving them previously. So you're going to see that be a huge thing of shortages of all these different professions, where the boomers were there coming towards retiring, and then where the pandemic made it not worth their while to hang out to work for just a couple more years, where they, maybe they got laid off, and now it's like, well, you were retirement age, now they're used to being home, they're retired, they're collecting their pension and Social Security, and they're done. Or, so they've hit that point, is the main point. I don't want to go on about that too much. And then also about the creative bookkeeping, I saw that really hit a shortage of different teachers through the use of virtual learning labs that would allow one teacher to be in 3 different schools at once, and things such as on-the-job training and other courses where you could have one non-teacher faculty member overseeing the program for like 600 kids, and they would still be scheduled into that class period for 6th and 7th up to 30, so it would look right on paper. Even though there were, in reality 600, not 60 kids answering to that teacher or faculty member. And that, so we were talking about that in the teacher shortage, and this time I want to kind of focus on things that we can do to solve the teacher shortage, and I got into it a little bit. Obviously, raising teacher pay is the biggest one step. Governor DeSantis got onto the right track with that, with raising starting teacher pay to $47.5 it is now this year. They need to do something for retaining the experienced teachers they have. With the district and the base pay right now, our base pay, there's only a $2,500 difference between somebody who is fresh out of college and a teacher that's got 25 years in. That is a brutal slap of disrespect. They're going to have to do something to re-extend out those pay grades and pay steps for time in before your veteran teachers say, like, well, I have all this time in, but I'm getting nothing to show for this time in. Why don't I go ahead and, take my working time I have left, go into the private sector so I can have some high earning years before I close out my Social Security, because Social Security is balanced around your 3 highest years as an earner. So if you can leave teaching, go into a job making $60,000 a year instead of 53, that's going to help you. If you can go into a job making 90 instead, that's really going to help you on the scale that you get paid out on. So to fix our teacher shortage, the big thing was raising new teacher pay, because you have to get new people into the field. There was a straight up decade there where starting teacher pay was too low, and now definitely, if it had stayed at that level, would definitely be too low to even pay for rent around here. So raising teacher pay was a good first step for, the new teachers. You just need to raise everyone else's pay too, so you don't lose them. Hiring on more new teachers isn't going to solve any problems if your experienced professionals are taking a hike because they feel insulted and unappreciated, because of their pay scale, not being respected or raised in kind. Other things, that'll help avoid this teacher shortage, I feel they need to bring on more administrators and really end the stigma of having classroom behavior problems. Being in the pandemic, being through the lockdowns, being bombarded with how to phrase this, before, I want to say before Ferguson. We've had the 24-hour news cycle most of my adult life. I'll say my entire adult life. But politics kind of became pop culture right around the Trayvon Martin case, somewhere between there and Ferguson. Politics really became something that was inescapable and all over. And, like all the doomsaying, things are worse than they've ever been. All the negativity and the doomsaying really came in around 2014, 2015. I always blame Harambe getting shot as like breaking the timeline, because I think back to 2015 as really the year that things started to go awry. But really around that time is, everything was all over the place. You had people being incredibly nasty to each other, in the town square that became, well, Twitter, Facebook, and whatnot. And students begin to see that and experience that on a new level. People begin to experience it on a new level. It used to be politics was something you argued maybe over the dinner table when the weird uncle came to visit from across the state and didn't think the way you and everyone else in your area did. So that higher exposure to different ways of thinking and the fact we're arguing about it, really amped up the stress. And I think that really amped up the stress the students were feeling, because, now you have not only are mom and dad in a bad mood because of work, but, they're in a bad mood and they're busy arguing on Facebook because of politics. And, that's going to bleed out into the kids. So with our kids having more and more issues than ever to work out, there's more and more stress than ever with the pandemic and the situation of things. We're looking at a land war in Europe for the first time in 70 years, and knowing what happened the last couple times there was a major issue. So it is kind of racist to say a land war in Europe for the first time in 70 years. As though the issue in the 90s that Clinton dealt with never happened. But, I guess we don't consider the Balkans to be Europe proper. I don't know. That one's going to be a video for another time, and how people like to split hairs about what's European and what's not. But we have the thing with the Ukraine going on. You have gas at its highest price since, 2009, 2008. The entire tone of everything is changed into this doom and gloom, and that stress works its way down into the kids. So it's going to be small wonder, that as you have fewer teachers and you're packing more of these ever more stressed out kids, let alone what this constant cycle in doom and gloom is probably doing to the teacher's psyche as well and contributing to the burnout. But you have these kids there, they're going to have more problems, different problems. They're going to need more psychiatric help. And at the same time, you should be planning on having more problems. Teachers are getting less and less support on dealing with those problems. They're being held accountable for the actions of hormonal teenagers who don't understand what they're doing, that are acted out because of all the stresses they're under. So I think, a big step towards lowering this teacher shortage thing would be to bring in more deans, have those deans be trained psychiatrists, Like, why is it that psychiatrist and dean is not a synonymous position? You can have those deans work with the problem, work with the child that is having the problem and creating the problem, help them find the root of the problem, fix it, work past it, and solve it, and have that intervention there. You know, if you've got a child acted up because he's, just so frustrated that, everything he hears in his internet life and among his friends are all one way on the political thing, and his family all feels the other way on the political thing, and all they do is argue all night about it, and he gets mocked and shamed at home about it. Then he comes to school and gets mocked and shamed about something else. So he starts to act out and speak out and pick fights with people and, yell and stamp or start to get into fist fights. Somebody needs to help him work through that shit. And I really see that, the intersection of working through the root causes of discipline issues and handling discipline issues falls to that dean position. And having psychiatrists as deans in the schools would probably be a really good step at this point. And that would also help take care of the social and emotional learning that they kept trying to dump off on teachers who are way too underqualified to be talking about those topics with students. I am in no way qualified to be talking about suicide with the students, let alone all my own personal baggage that talking about that drags up from the past. It's just not a fair thing to ask of teachers. They're unqualified, and we didn't sign up for it. So, shifting that social emotional learning, the discipline issues and everything more to a dean position that's filled with an administrator that is actually trained and handled in child psychology and dealing with the roots and whatnot, I think that would help a lot with the teacher burnout. But that's only going to do so good if there's not a change in school culture. I've mentioned before, my school culture has this awesome relationship between the teachers and admin where we act as a team, and it's us and the parents and the student all working together for the student's success academically in school. And I don't feel like that's a culture in a lot of schools. I feel like there's a lot of gotcha going on. From the accounts I've listened to on YouTube of teachers talking about why they quit and different horror stories they tell about admin. The one guy had his evaluation done by two admin on the same day while he was doing a test teaching history, and they flunked his evaluation because they didn't see him communicate with his students because the kids were taking a test when they were in there for the 3 minutes they were there. That's a major issue. So if we can, have admin kind of change the idea of that their job is to find fault with the teachers, and instead, when there's a problem, their job is to be the facilitators of a solution, that would be a huge thing and a huge thing for morale. And I've seen it work wonders with my own students and my coworkers. When I have a student that's behind in their work, I don't call and yell at them about being behind in their work. I call and I say, hey, I'm calling because you're behind in your work, but I want to know what can I do to help you get caught up. And I have a conversation with the kid, and we make a plan for how they're going to get caught up. And, that works so much better than the, phone call that goes, I'm calling because you're behind. What's your excuse? Can you explain to me why you're behind? What are you going to do to fix it? Whereas when you're approaching the problem as a team, you can really come into it, and then you can have people reach out for support. And administration's role in the school should be to support the teachers, work with the teachers, and help the teachers do what's best for the students. So if we can get a change in that school culture where administration is less about being abusive middle management and being a support structure that encourages and organizes education to the highest effect possible, that would be a huge thing. when you have a parent-teacher conference, it shouldn't be an argument about, where to put the blame. The blame should be set aside, and the discussion should be about how to solve the problem. Now, obviously, if that parent-teacher conference is because, say a kid got, I don't know, threw a chair across the room. Just they broke, they hit a frustration level, they were done with, they threw a chair across the room. Obviously, some of that's going to be, well, there's a consequence for what you did, and we can't have that being done. But we also want to make sure that it doesn't happen again. So we want to understand why you did it, and we're going to fix it and go forward from there and have that resolution. I've read some teacher think pieces that want to refer to that as like a restorative justice thing. Well, the teacher needs restorative justice too. I've seen one teacher that's a YouTuber, and if she keeps doing it, I will name her by names. But she likes to do this thing where she gets on there and she mocks things that her coworkers have said. And, she puts on the filter to, make herself look very unattractive by the filter. Like makes the face look really fat. And he says this very obnoxious voice where the teachers have said things, and she's mocking them and making fun of them. And, yeah, it gets her a bunch of likes from the kids that are watching, and they're going crazy in the comments section complaining about her students. But, that's lambasting the teachers, acting like it's all the teacher's fault. When there's 31 bodies in the classroom, you can't just always pin it on the one. Yeah, they're the only adult in the room, but they're the only adult in the room. There's things going on, and they're only human. Just like when the police have moments where, they might say something a little too harsh or they're cranky or whatnot, you have no idea if the cop pulling you over, it just came off of a shift earlier that day where he had to put together the body parts of a dead child and, help EMTs carry them out of a building. You don't fucking know. Maybe he's got a really good reason to not be overly happy. And it's not on us to take that out on people. That's part of, being good people ourselves, is that understanding. So I really feel like that change of culture where teachers are given the benefit of the doubt, where admin's part of their support structure, all of that really needs to come back if you want to solve this teacher shortage. I don't think the full level of respect that used to be there is ever going to really come back. We started having too much of a move towards individuality and self-expression and sticking it to the man in every sense of the word. Really came up in the 80s and the 90s, and it's just spiraled out since then. Because teachers are government employees and represent the man, it's just never going to go back to that place. But if we could, swap out respect for some basic human empathy being expressed and like as the norm in our day-to-day lives in the classroom, that would probably go a very long way. The other thing, and so that'll help stop your teacher shortage. And this last one is probably going to be the most controversial one I say, but we probably need to look at what goes into certifying teachers and make it different. You do not have to have a 4-year degree to be a firefighter. And being a firefighter, yeah, you have to run into a burning house. Not everyone's cut out to do that. But being a firefighter does pay pretty well. You get a lot more time off than even a teacher does. You're not always running into the fire. And, no one disrespects a firefighter. And the pay level is about the same and even a little bit better than the teacher. If you look at being a police officer, I know in some areas they need to have a 4-year degree, just like in some areas teachers have to have masters. But in many areas, to be a police officer, all you gotta do is go to that 6-month police academy. Some of them aren't even 6 months long. I know in the area I was growing up in, they were only just then starting to talk about requiring an AA and police academy for hiring the local sheriffs and police officers. I'm not exactly sure what it is here in Fort Myers. I haven't talked about it. But, the point being that you have people that perform similar civil servant roles in the providing a necessary service to the public that a teacher provides, that do not have to go through your classic degree path with a bachelor's degree. So I'm thinking that if we could change the path to becoming a teacher to be in more of a 2-year or even a 3-year stint, I definitely like a 2.5-year way of doing it would be really good, where you have 2 semesters where you're getting all brushed up on your background information, a summer semester where you're getting focused teacher training for things, like diversification, language acquisition, that sort of stuff. And then you go into your 4th semester where you're doing your part-time internships, getting your hands dirty and doing your methods classes, learning that sort of thing. And then you go into your final internship where you're there for, the full time with the teacher, getting your hands-on stuff. That would be a very good thing. And the crazy higher level courses, like I had to take that extra coursework where you want the teacher to be a master of the curriculum, is something that could be done with independent study as PD as they develop and move on. It's not like we're teaching the cutting edge knowledge in high school. Even the math teachers and physics teachers in high school are teaching knowledge that is very old and long standing. You don't need to have that far of an advanced degree to teach those courses. If you can do calculus as a teacher, you can probably teach calculus as a teacher, because the difference between doing and teaching is knowing how to break it down so someone else can understand it. As a teacher, your job is to break it down so someone else can understand it, which is why I'm able to take anything that I have any, remote mastery of, take it in and teach someone else how to do it because I can break it down. I do it with Dungeons and Dragons, I do it with teaching, I do it with history, I do it with science, I've done it with math in the past, I've done it with English literature in the past, I've done it with philosophy in the past, and I was not trained to teach most of those things. The only thing I ever received formal training on how to teach was social studies. So we need to pare down the obstacles to becoming a teacher, make it more manageable by having it be a shorter process, its own standalone sort of program instead of an AA or a BA, and then you can go and do this, have it be its own sort of, teaching degree, a literal teaching degree, and, ease entry like on that side of things into the field. Well, at the meantime, raise the fucking floor. Dropped my first F-bomb, but we're not going to re-record this. Raise the floor. I have seen people who wanted to be teachers who sat there and took the general knowledge test, which I don't even remember taking it myself because it was so easy. It's general knowledge. It's did you pay attention in high school test. I walked in, I took it once, I walked out, incredible scores. And that's the way it is for most people taking that test. But you can take the general knowledge test in Florida. There's 6 different sections you're scored on. You can take it 6 times and add together all of your best sections. I've seen people take that test 6 times, 12 times, go in and get their teaching license, having done that test 12 times to pass it. That should be a no-go. That should be you take the entire test, everything stands, and your singular test score stands, and that's it. That's all you have. Not go in, take it 12 times, and match together all of your highest section tests to still barely get a passing grade and go into the classroom to teach. That is some ridiculousness. So there you go. That's the baseline of what I think needs to change. Our next video probably be talking a little bit about things we need to change in the future with education, but hopefully that'll be something I can talk about as I'm cruising around in the car, and a video for tomorrow. So good night, folks, and thanks for tuning in as long as you did.